initiation. Deki Lee will lead a sadhana session this month. Manoshi or Deki Lee, do you happen to have a date yet? I mentioned this first because someone asked me. Okay, so that will be coming. So that will be
Yeah,
coming.
I'm waiting to hear from you, Kedrup, on dates.
Oh, no, Deki Lee, you don't need to wait for me. Whenever you
Okay.
want. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
We can
maybe
look
I'll
it up.
email you and you just like tell me what we want, and then we can let Manoshi know and we'll set it up. Does that sound good? Okay.
Yeah.
So then, and then in addition to this, of course, we have these Sunday teachings continuing, and our big sort of special event of the autumn, of the fall, is going to be this month on the 25th and the 26th of October. So the 25th of October, it will be a shorter session of about 1 hour where Geshe is going to kind of lead us in a meditation on bodhicitta, and then have the bodhisattva vows, and we'll take those together with Geshe in a very relaxed way. Um, Sunday is the Medicine Buddha initiation. The Bodhisattva vows will be a part of that as well. So if you can't make it Saturday and you're worried, don't be. It's just that it will be a much more condensed version of the Bodhisattva vows. The Medicine Buddha initiation, like White Tara, Geshe is very comfortable if people wish to take that as a blessing. So if people don't wish to take the Bodhisattva vows and wish to participate in the event, they're most welcome. If there's people who want to sort of connect with some healing energy for any reason, they are most welcome to participate. If you're going to be coming in person, please do register as soon as you can so that it makes it easier for us to make preparations. But for our overseas community, of course, this will be streamed, but it'll only be streamed live. So that means that you have to watch it like when it's actually happening. We also have Dave's book club, which continues to run on Tuesday evenings. And then we also have various kind of practice sessions, Medicine Buddha, Tara, and others that people are most welcome to join. And then what else did I want to tell you? And then we have after that sort of big weekend, I think the first weekend in November, Geshe and I may be off, but then following that, we'll go to the next text in this series, Fundamental Texts of Indo-Tibetan Buddhism, which is going to be Stages of Meditation by Kamalashila. So that is kind of all of the programming that we have going forth, as well as a morning meditation program. And Manoshi does a great job of covering all those things in our newsletter. So if you haven't signed up for the newsletter, please do. In terms of email correspondence, I am caught up with everybody. So if you haven't, or I think I am, so if you haven't heard from me, ping me, because I'm assuming that I've answered everybody by now, or that Geshe has answered everybody. And is there anything else? No, I think that's about it. So grab yourself a cup of tea or coffee, make yourselves comfortable, and we'll get started in 2 or 3 minutes. Thanks for joining us. So hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sunday teaching. We'll just do a quick sound check before we get started. Can everybody hear me clearly enough? Okay, great. Again, and can you hear Geshe-la's voice as well? Excellent. So great to see everybody. So first of all, greetings to all Dharma friends. And as always, Geshe-la hopes that you are all well, and he hopes that you are all happy. So, of course, the first step as we all gather together in a situation like this is that we want to be able to transform our mind. We're working towards developing a mind that is more accepting, vast, open, and this will help us to be more peaceful. And this is something that is going to help us whether we think about our studies, whatever we're studying, and also when we think about our practice. This is really going to be something that is beneficial for us. Lam Gyachampo Log. Yeah, yeah. And so a lot of what we talk about when we're training our mind to in the teachings is to activate its vastness, is to activate its capacity. So what's the benefit of working and cultivating to establish this vast mind? The benefit is when small disturbances happen, they will no longer be able to shake us. A lot of those small difficulties and problems will naturally subside. So that is sort of the basis that we establish. And then based upon that, right, any practice we engage in, we will be able to be successful. And then in addition to establishing that vastness, then tapping into this human rebirth, which provides us with this human potential, right? This human body and intelligence. As we engage in our cultivation of the practice, we want to have in our mind through this engagement, may all the negativities accumulated since beginningless time and beginningless lifetimes in samsara until now be completely cleared away. This is also important to bring to mind. So then we know, right, if we really see our own welfare as important, ourselves as precious, right, we know that whatever negative karma we have amassed that remains, this is going to lead to Nyambasana digpa dipele kare. Right. 5 minutes in, I'm getting the sauce already. What happened? So Geshe-la said the negative karma, right? When we talk about the characteristics of karma, karma is definite. It will definitely bring forth a result. So that's why we want to pay attention to purification. So if we see ourselves as precious, if we want to ensure our own welfare, then we know that karma, cause and effect, is something unfailing. And also those negative karmas that we have accumulated, it is not as if another can clear those away for us, right? This is something that we must do ourselves.
다 대디세 그 말은 얘네 돈에 까망아 저 종안 놀아요. 세지 요zul라 때문에 때문에 디파쇼 돈에 다 내야긴 했었지. 로하스.
And that's actually pretty incredible if you think about it. We, in a 10 or 15-minute long session of practice, if we think in the correct way with our mind, we can reduce the negative karma accumulated on the basis of all sentient beings. This is the power of the practice.
다 대강가 제 토야 대 세제 요zul라 때문에 디파 디세 뒤뒤지는 쇼자 매일 레반디 체지 첨부지레스.
So one of the characteristics, right, of this human rebirth is our intelligence. And one of the benefits of human intelligence is that we can think in such a way that our engagement in virtue, just in that short session, can become a cause to purify the negative karma we have accumulated in relation to every last sentient being.
다 조지 바데 아다차 벨 페네 다 파시 아니 사자 연도는 로그라바스. 로비깔 롱고네 디파트는 슈소나. 롱갈.
Loso.
디파트는 조 통소나. 드가루스 강가고 아니 로바 강가고 아니라 디자치요.
And so this attention, right, to our accumulation of unwholesome karma is very important. It is said that Lord Atisha, when he was traveling in Tibet, for example, if he was on the road and a misdeed that he had committed came to mind, that he would stop his traveling party and confess it right there, right on the spot.
드니 뭐 가시 거깔래 가그러 와서 간도 좀 버스 도와드려요. 먼저 저지 파사자레 자스는 그달래로 그러왔어. 인도네시아는 저기 말이야.
Yeah. And so then this annoyed his companions a lot because, of course, people are impatient and we get annoyed when we have to wait around for someone. And they said to Lord Atisha, like, we'll get to our destination tonight. Couldn't you just wait until tonight to confess the misdeed?
델 조지 내 가르쳐 봐래. 그다음에 내 토야게 소설 디테 니빠 요베스.
And he said, can you, and Lama Atisha's answer was, can you promise me, do you have the power, the clairvoyance to guarantee me that I will definitely 100% be alive by the time we get there tonight? So these are kind of heavily worded pieces of advice, but it is for that very reason that they are powerful, right? And the reality of this is abundantly clear. How often do we read about sudden things happening, that somebody wakes up one morning in full health and before the evening they've already passed away, right? This is something that definitely happens. So this human body that we possess right now, which is more precious, more valuable than the entire surface of the earth covered with wish-fulfilling jewels, if you take that, if this is the opportunity we have, then absolutely we must put effort into purifying negativities and cultivating what is wholesome. 간대속이래. 세부천에 배송당.
티소 고스 니마니마 소소 마체 바잖아.
소상공선 라마송 고츠디 다.
가마라와스 테질레라 오치케자. 아케자. 티소 고스 코로 니마니마 마체 바지잖아. 하고서라 되니 조정도나 기고서 되는 거 지세치 뭐요.
So if every day, if for every increment of 24 hours we are consistent, we make sure that at least we engage in some hearing, contemplation, and meditation upon the teachings, then we can go about with our other activities in a more relaxed way, knowing that we have done something worthwhile. He's just joking with Geshe. He said, so if we do it every 24 hours, right, then we can go along relaxed. And I was like, okay, but do what? And he was like, hearing, contemplation, and meditation. So apparently I should know that, right? So, so keep that in mind, folks. Hearing, contemplation, meditation. Yeah.
나도 gem만노나 다 송어제네 다 로유치처럼 무조게 아트가디나 던자레레 데디케르젤 소소가자 미마 가디마 하고 말와스
Ale.
자미마
Samima.
데타진 콘세치 요아와
Yeah.
코 가디나 로유치게 마이자
Yeah.
콜 콘셉트 미사 페토문디스
Ale. Ale. Los.
하고서로 자미마 가디마 하고 말와스
Yeah.
자지네
So then Geshe was thinking about his time at the monastery, and there was a certain monk who was like very diligent in his study. The other monks thought perhaps overly diligent. And so they said that like you don't even recognize in your mind, as learned as you are, you don't even recognize in your mind when it's Tuesday. And that's because Tuesday in the monastery, right, is their day off, is their holiday. But because he was just continuing with his study as if it was a regular day, he didn't even notice.
다 콜로 전전도야도 대지를 페도시라야마 가디나 돼서 대가라와스
Yeah. So he wasn't really interested in using the day to like go out with his friends or have a good time or anything like that. He didn't see those things as particularly useful.
다 알리 모토서 되는 된다 데레스 하고서로 가제 터더 다 소속을 내가 쪼들이 야보잖아 더니 전전도는 기워잖아 가리나 오고 기워 만다와 된대요레스
So the point here is that if we engage with hearing, contemplation, and meditation as much as possible, then when we go out with our friends, when we go around and enjoy ourselves, we'll be able to do so with the confidence, with the security we've done something worthwhile. We'll be truly relaxed.
다 레님바스 대하tin 고치 콘 디분 그트야 고치 주잖아 아니 릴라고 손질하여서 야만도 와스
The thing too with negative karma is that once it has been activated in terms of bringing forth a result, once the result has started to manifest, even the Buddha cannot intervene directly to stop that.
다 저요 바테 소맥이 레이나요 콘고 맞추긴 디분 고 맞추긴 냐라 소소가 다 님보 또지가 토니 메바존을 레 간디스이나 메바존이 여바도 소지코로 다 몸보스요레스
However, the Buddha has said, and he says it in various places within the scriptures, that if before the result of that heavy negative karma has begun to manifest, even if we are speaking of heavy negative karmas such as the 5 actions of immediate retribution, killing one's father, one's mother, and so forth, if one is able to confess that with the 4 opponent powers before its result begins manifesting, it can be cleared away. So then perhaps a bit too much of an introduction, but all important points to recall again. So we are going now to do our meditation. So just bring your body, your mind into a state of relaxation. Think the mind is peaceful, and in this way I will bring the 4 elements into balance to produce this peace. So in a relaxed way, sort of not following distracting thoughts, try to bring the consciousness to this fundamental mind and think, what is this fundamental mind like? What is its neutral nature like? We can think that the mind is something that is pure luminosity. We can think of a room. Right. So if we place a light on a table within a darkened room, normally that room would be illuminated. But if there is a piece of cloth covering that light, we wouldn't be able to see anything. So the fundamental mind, like the sun, is naturally radiant, naturally luminous, but because it is covered by this veil, by this cloth, we remain in darkness. You might ask, well, is this cloth, is this veil part of our mind? Is it the nature of our mind? The answer is no, it is not. It is adventitious, like a temporary guest, or like a cloud that momentarily obscures the sun. So, if as much as possible we work to clear away this veil that obscures us, then our mind's luminosity will be revealed, clearing away the darkness and allowing us to diminish our ignorance. Based upon this positive aspect of the nature of the fundamental mind, I will tap into this as much as possible to lead it to bringing forth wisdom. This self or this I, it seems like it's pinpointable somewhere within these 5 skandhas or aggregates. But the more I look for it, the more I realize that there is no findable substantial self there at all. But similarly, we know that because of this misperception, any affliction that arises, it arises connected with this false appearance of there being a truly existent self, a self existing from its own side. Think, may I be able to discover not this false appearance, but the final mode of abiding of the self, the way it truly is, so that I can be of benefit to others. I make single-pointed requests with faith to the holy beings in order to achieve this. Sorry. So we'll do the prayers. Tenpa chom den de jin je ba ja chom ba yan da bar zo be sang je ba dang shab su dem ba de wa je ba je den gem ba ke bu du we ka lo gyo rwa la na me ba la da min ham gi tem ba song ge jom den de be ja wa shai kyo tu ba la cha ze lo che de kya be su chi ho tenpa chon den de jin she ba ja chon ba yang da ba zo be sang ge je ba dang shab su den ba de wa she ba je den chen ba she bu de we ka lo jo rwa la na me ba la da mi nam gi tenpa song ge chon den de be ja wa sha kya tu ba la cha ze lo che de kya su ji ho tenpa chon den de jin she ba ja chon ba yang da ba zo be sang ge je ba dang shab su den ba de wa she ba ji den chen ba che bu de we ka lo jo rwa la na me ba la da mi nam gi tenpa song ge chon den de be ja wa sha kya tu ba la cha ze lo che de kya su chi ho. Short mandala. So ji pe gi chu ji me to cha ji ra ling ji ni de gen ba di sang ge jin de me de bo wa ge jo go nan da ji la che ba shu I dam guru ratna mendala ka niryata yami. So refuge and bodhicitta. Chedang sogi chenam la jangchu bardu dani kyaw su chi dagi chenyen gi be sonam gi jola penche sangye joba sho. Chedang sogi chenam la jangchu bardu dani kyaw su chi dagi chenyen gi be sonam gi jola penche sangye joba sho. Chedang zogi chenam la jangchu bardu dani kyab su chi dagi chenyen gi be sanam gi jola penjir sangye jobar sho.
Oh yeah, that ganzo. Oh, that is it. Oh, to this and that has it to the Gavasha Pati. Tapoge, Pitapo, Nipa Chimocha, Ganzo, that can only use the Apocalypse.
So in order to be able to take this short time and make sure that we are able to ensure that it is the maximum collection of what is wholesome of merits, then it is very important to pay careful attention to our motivation.
Oh, that Poge dig dushu. Oh, Akasara, Gava, the Seri, take a dushu, that Niamodum. Then a laying about the tage could only Kanga. Lots much Latin, Shumaritin, Nipa condition to coinance.
So then we understand that the opposite, right, of the positive mental qualities are the afflictions, and we understand that the opposite of positive karma is unwholesome or negative karma. We understand that these two things are completely false because they arise from mistaken minds. They are false, yet they are powerful. They are enough to keep us churning within samsara.
어떤 로아리 지금 뭐 강강 고고도 도야 뭐 강갈 강에 제 도야 콜로 즈마지이나 고든지 시에도도 왔어.
So it's pretty remarkable when one thinks about it that these karmas and these thoughts that are based upon completely mistaken minds are powerful enough to drive the suffering experience of all 6 types of sentient beings within samsara.
어다 뭐 강에 세는데 어다 되게 좋았어. 어다 내서 던지지요는 수수딜로 용어다 봐라. 나도 땡보지나. 데일리 좋고 자대 세마 어다 지게세마 나도 누라요 이사 땡데 토코로니 바지 되게
But the other side of that, of course, is that if those mistaken minds are so powerful, that the correct minds, the correct understandings that we bring forth, which are backed by truth, by countless valid cognitions and correct reasonings, these are going to be even more powerful. So holy beings, kind of understanding this comparatively, talk about the humble afflictions, right? Because their power cannot eclipse that of these correct understanding minds. So we say humble minds in terms of the afflictions because we understand that they lack any valid, that they are completely mistaken. Because they are completely mistaken, they lack power. So the humble here is humble in terms of a lack of power. So what need is there to say then that if we bring forth minds based with a correct backing, then love, compassion, bodhicitta can overpower these mistaken minds? What need is there to say that? That even when we tap into the neutral nature of the fundamental mind, right, that already makes the foothold of the afflictions very shaky. So the afflictions are always a little bit uncomfortable. Think about if somebody gets you some clothes that are either too loose or too tight. You're always going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. In the same way, because the neutral character of the fundamental mind does not match with the flavor of the mistaken mind, they're always kind of a little bit uncomfortable abiding with us. Kare? And so isn't it weird then that when an affliction arises, it doesn't fit with our fundamental nature, so there's automatically a feeling of discomfort, right? We feel uncomfortable when an affliction arises, yet we continue to cultivate the afflicted minds with tenacity. Why is that? So we see, though, with positive mental qualities like love and compassion, if we put just a little bit of effort into bringing those forth, right, we automatically feel more relaxed, more peaceful. So this is where we should be putting our energy. So this just a little bit of a background, because it may seem a little bit odd at first, why we speak about the humble afflictions, right? Humble in terms of their power. So we are going to do another short meditation together. So focus the mind using the 4 close placements of mindfulness. From tapping into this neutral or fundamental nature, think the body is at ease and the mind is peaceful. Imagine in the space in front of you, sitting upon a beautiful multi-petaled lotus, appears green Tara. Request, Venerable Tara, through the power of your enlightened activities, please bestow on me all worldly and supramundane conditions. Think, I go to you for refuge, so that I may be able to achieve the welfare of all sentient beings. Therefore, please bless me, so that I myself may achieve Venerable Tara's enlightenment. Think, being pleased with our aspiration, from the heart of Venerable Tara in front of us, light rays and nectars emanate. These enter our body through our crown aperture and completely fill it with beautiful nectar and light, completely cleansing away all negativities and the two obscurations, the afflictive and the knowledge obscurations. Think any of the positive, wholesome activities we put our attention to, because of Venerable Tara's qualities of enlightened activity, she can bless us perfectly to achieve those. So when we speak about achieving Buddhahood, right, whether we speak about actualizing the Buddhahood of Tara or actualizing the Buddhahood of Avalokiteshvara Chenrezig, for example, it's important to understand there's like two Taras and two Chenrezis. There's the Tara that is that being who is there blessing us, and there is the Tara that we will become when we actualize her enlightenment. And the same is true of Avalokiteshvara or Chenrezig. So if we think about Tara, for example, we know the story of Tara, right? There was the princess Yeshidawa, Wisdom Moon, and this princess Yeshidawa, Wisdom Moon, she was able to achieve enlightenment in the form of Tara. So this is the causal Tara. The resultant Tara is the Tara that we ourselves will actualize through her practice. But when we think about, like, whether it's green Tara or white Tara in terms of our practice, we should think of them as actually not just this causal refuge, but actually more the resultant refuge, because green or white Tara is the state that we will achieve through our cultivation. And so this way of going for refuge is going for refuge according to the resultant method. And so there's a lot of discussion, right? But in some takes upon this, actually scholars say that the causal refuge is not the main focus of refuge. In fact, the resultant refuge is the main one. And so, of course, in order to achieve the state of Tara, it's not something that can happen in the absence of causes. We need to train carefully in the stages to reach that enlightenment. And understanding this, let us turn to our text. So Geshe said, with this particular chapter, he's going to ask all of you to listen with an open mind. Don't be nervous. There's heavy stuff in here, but it can be useful. Don't freak out, in other words. I'm just kidding. That's Kedra. So Geshe said, remember we connected this. So remember we connected this Bodhisattvacaryāvatāra with that prayer we make, where the bodhicitta has not arisen, yet may it arise. So the previous chapters that we covered, up to chapter number 3, that's what's happening here. And then the next part of that prayer, where it has arisen, may it not diminish. The essence of this starts in chapter 4. So if you've already given rise to the bodhicitta, then Geshe rejoices. But for most of us, this is also going to be a continued training in generating bodhicitta. Those who have actually realized bodhicittas within their continuum, even if they have the form of an animal, they are an object worthy of prostration. Such is the power of this mind. And in fact, there are many stories about animals who possess the Bodhi mind. So it's not something impossible. Some of them almost unbelievable, but nevertheless things that are said to have happened. Yeah, so, that's if we have to offer prostration to those animals who have arisen bodhicitta, then there's no reason to be proud of our own qualities. I think it's so good. So then the name of this chapter, and we've covered a couple of the verses, this is the chapter on conscientiousness. Sometimes this is translated as mindfulness. I like conscientiousness though, because I think it helps us distinguish from kind of the mindfulness craze, because really Śāntideva is talking about something else. So Bhakya, or conscientiousness, means being careful, proceeding with caution. That's the essence of this mind. So why do we need to be careful? Think about the section that preceded this one, right? We took on the Bodhisattva vows and all of the attendant commitments, right? So we want to proceed conscientiously so that we don't degenerate them. So we are on verse number 3. It's page 13. But how can I ever withdraw from what has been examined by the great wisdom of the Buddhas and their children, and even many times by me myself? Yeah, so, whether us checking if these are valid things to bring forth or not, that's not so sure. But we can have trust, right, in the Buddhas and their children, which means the Bodhisattvas, because for many kalpas, many eons, they investigated these things with their wisdom. So Geshe is quoting a verse, and the essence of this verse is because they contemplated for many eons what would be beneficial. The Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas are able to proclaim with confidence what will be of benefit to self and others. Because they investigated many scriptures and reasonings to propound this view and proclaimed it with confidence, that is enough. It should be enough for us to be convinced that this is something that we do not just want to set aside. So now we proceed to verse number 4. So, verse number 4, if having made such a promise I do not put it into action, then by deceiving every living being, what kind of rebirth shall I take? So if having made this sacred promise through the bodhisattva vows, but then we don't exert ourselves at all in the bodhisattva practices, this is equivalent to cheating the Buddhas and the bodhisattvas. In addition to that, it's like cheating not just one sentient being or a couple of sentient beings, right? It is essential to, it is akin to cheating numberless sentient beings. So if we're cheating all of these both holy and ordinary beings, then what kind of future destiny, future rebirth can we expect? So, even if we just cheat like one or a couple of sentient beings, we know that this produces unwholesome karma that can lead to problems later on. So what need is there to say that this is the case if we deceive numberless sentient beings? So Geshe said that, these words might seem heavy, but it's not like we need to kind of like recoil in fear, because we need to balance this with the other side of what we're doing, right? We know the power of the minds of loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and that these are arisen connected with all sentient beings. So just keep that perspective in mind as well. So actually, if the bodhisattva promises that we made were something that caused tremendous difficulty to our body and mind, made us unhealthy, then we should consider setting those aside. But we see that this is not the case, right? The mind of bodhicitta and the practices associated with it, they are only things that bring us happiness and joy. Therefore, there's absolutely no need to set it aside. And this is not a happiness that we have to wait until subsequent lifetimes to achieve, that we have to wait until future years to enjoy. If we bring forth these minds, this is a happiness that we can taste, that we can experience starting right now. So as we proceed, keep that in your mind, right? Bodhicitta brings us so many happy and beneficial things. And then when you read the advice here, which is sometimes heavy, it doesn't cause any need to despair. So just keep that a balanced view. Just think, somebody's giving us some heavy advice so we don't disregard the one reliable thing that is going to lead to our happiness. That is the motivation here. If it has been taught by the Buddha that he who does not give away the smallest thing he once intended to give will take rebirth as a hungry ghost. So what this is warning about is a particular case where, let's say that we had made a resolution, we had made a promise to ourselves that we were going to, let's say, help a particular sentient being that was in poverty. If we make that resolution, but then we actually don't ever do anything to help them, this is a contravention of the Bodhisattva vows. So that's what's being warned here. So it's a heavy fault if, for example, you say, okay, this person who's usually panhandling near my house, I'm going to give him or her $1 next time I see them. And then you go and then you see the person and then you think, well, actually, I can't really part with it. I need that $1, right? Even if it's a small amount, the miserly mind comes up and we don't give it, then this is a contravention of the Bodhisattva vows. So the fault, let's be very clear what it is. Within your mind, you have already relinquished this. You have already said you are going to do this generosity. But then, before you actually do the action, miserliness comes up, and then you decide not to do it. That's the fault here. So, let us also be clear, right? Like, in most cases, this is a relatively light fault. Nobody's saying that you're going to go to the lower realms immediately for doing this, but the problem is that if it becomes habituated, they add up, and also through the momentum of karma, it increases from day to day to day to day, then it becomes a heavier thing. So Geshe is quoting a verse from Lama Tsongkhapa. I haven't memorized Lama Tsongkhapa's text, so he's going to give me he's written it down, but he didn't do it till this morning. So anyways, I will translate this for you folks. There's a couple of people who remember stuff. So I will translate this for everyone. There's a couple of people who are good at reminding me of this stuff. So Dave, if I forget this, just poke me, or somebody else poke me, and I'll make sure you get it. But it's about this generosity. So the first two lines, so it's a 4-line shloka or verse. So the first 2 lines of this are saying that because all functional things lack inherent existence, may I come to possess all wealth and enjoyments. It's something like that. At the same time, understanding that all of the wealth, all of the functional things that I may achieve are by their nature impermanent, that they cannot last forever, may I easily relinquish them to be of benefit to others. So this is a very, very important verse, and Geshe said he's pretty sure, anyways, we'll let you know if it's not the case, but he's pretty sure this was uttered by Lama Tsongkhapa himself. And when we start to think about things differently, right, according to these teachings, this is really training our mind, right? Thinking about things from a different perspective. That's lojong. Umze, loso, loso. Ting, loso, loso. So Geshe is telling a story about an umze, so a chanting master from Sera in the early days. So he was one of those lamas who was in Buxal in the early refugee camp. Ale. Candice? Yeah. So he came from Tibet, and he was a very elderly lama, but he was very famous as the umze, as the chanting master for his beautiful voice. But people didn't really pay much attention to his study or practice or whether he was a serious practitioner. But anyways, as he was elderly and sort of coming to the last stages of life, his prized possessions were these beautiful offering bowls made of silver. And one day somebody stole those silver offering bowls. And so normally he was also seen as kind of like quick to anger, right? A short-tempered person. Right. So when he noticed, he thought, if I immediately go out to look for the thief, if I can identify who the thief is, maybe there's some hope that I will be able to get these silver bowls back. Ale koronki getru chiklaswa, koromare. Ti sabulama soma, na midi tselgores, di koronki getru re. Ti sabachane lama soma. So the person who was going to run after him, right? I need clarity, otherwise the story's not going to make sense. So the person who was going to run after him, right, at the last minute, the Lama Umze changed his mind and he said, you know what? I don't have much time left in this life, so you know what? Forget it. It's okay. Let him go. And he said, you know, why can I do this? Because I'm not really the owner of these anyway. I already offered these beautiful silver bowls to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So if they determine that it's beneficial for this other person to have it, may he or she have it. And so at the end, actually, the way he died was in sort of a very, very positive way. So people came to understand that he was actually quite a realized being.
Lana maybe the wala somba tapin denian and rowa tonchi lishina dendro karere chaka donjero
Dendro jiga drogyoram. So then, if I should deceive all beings after having sincerely invited them to the unsurpassable bliss, shall I take a happy rebirth? So having taken the bodhisattva vows and all of the attendant commitments with that, right, we know from the verse that we have invited all beings to be our guests, right? So we're supposed to see all sentient beings as guests that we have invited. So having invited them as our guests, what is our responsibility? To help them, to serve them as their servant. And if we don't try to serve those sentient beings, it's like we've invited them on false pretenses. It is cheating. And not only that, we didn't invite them as ordinary guests, but we invited them to unsurpassable bliss. What's this promise? We promised to try to lead them to enlightenment, to Buddhahood. Yeah. So unsurpassable, of course, this means nothing better than that, right? That state which is supreme. So if I make that promise and don't do anything to help these guests who I've invited, then how can I be sure to have a happy rebirth, right? Yeah. So Geshe said, now here, verse number 7, this is a difficult one. It's a more subtle meaning. Only the omniscient can discern the manner of the action of those who give up the awakening mind but are freed. It is beyond the scope of ordinary thought. So Geshe said that here it says only the omniscient can discern, because this was a question that somebody asked Śāntideva, and he was saying, like, actually, I'm not able to answer that fully. Only a Buddha could answer. Yeah. Yes, right. So Geshe he's delving into his knowledge of the commentaries, and he's phrasing what the question would have been that got this answer. And the question is, we say that somebody having taken the bodhisattva vows and all of the attendant commitments, who is not able to keep those, is not able to have higher rebirth. Then how is it that there are some beings who begin on the bodhisattva path, but then later give up that mind of bodhicitta and attain the state of a shravaka, moksha, or liberation as a hearer, for example? So Śāntideva said, it is an excellent question, but it is beyond my capacity to answer, because karma is said to be unfathomable by ordinary sentient beings. Only a Buddha would be able to fully answer this question. So Geshe is just saying that, there are beings who important figures in Buddhist history who could have gone down the bodhisattva route, but set that aside and instead achieved individual liberation. And one of them is the main Shravaka disciple of the Buddha, Shariputra, right? Very important figure. Shariputra, right. Yes. Yeah. Right. So, 약간은 라프디 쪼바치기래 두아 좋아.
야
작가라
자가이나
좋아.
대체서 그러와.
Right. So what happened, so there's a story that goes along with this about Shariputra. And the story is that a demon approached Shariputra and the demon demanded his hand.
담마지래 샤리버로 말하나 알이야 그러와.
Michige. So Geshe's not sure if Shariputra, another one of the Shravaka disciples, he's not sure if which story goes with which. But anyway, so this Shravaka disciple of the Buddha, he was approached by a demon. And the demon said, "Give me your hand." So the Shravaka, he cut off his right hand and he offered it to the demon. But then the demon said, "You offered me something with your left hand," which of course in India, this is what you use to clean yourself. So the left hand is considered unclean. How dare you show me this disrespect? And the demon became very angry.
어다 드리세리 날 문두와 슬라바예바 문두와 요거 마트로 트세리 요 소송갈 기자 요는 제도 요아레스.
And the Shravaka disciple, he replied, "Well, what am I supposed to do? I'm offering you my right hand, so the left hand is the only thing that I can pick it up with." And then the demon said, "You're just completely disrespectful. If you really thought about it, you could figure out a more respectful way to offer this hand to me."
다원은 다 가리요아레스 파티케지 쪽으로 왔어. 다 요아레스 소송갈 기자 니네 요나 다 가리요 요거 된 걸로 요하자.
And so then the Shravaka disciple said to him, "Well, then what am I supposed to do?" And the demon answered, "Okay, take your left hand and take that right hand, place it on the top of your head, and then bow your head towards me. And then I'll take it."
어다 던지 먹갈래 가본 데서 아테네 쇼지 셀 파세주라고 쳐한다. 드리서 요기 쇼아레스.
So at that moment, that Shravaka, he decided the Bodhisattva path is definitely not for me. If you're going to have a sentient being that's that demanding, there's no hope to free all sentient beings. And he went down the path of individual liberation.
어다 대도 된다와 senji 가시 가서 그 로베 쇼론 던지 주송았어.
Lobe Shulong.
어다 이나 로메 가리라 되는 게 저기 마셔네. 어다 옆에
So there was also a story of, I can't remember if it's somebody, feel free to shout it out if you know, if it's Dharmakirti or Dignaga. I always get their two names in Tibetan mixed up, but either Dharmakirti or Dignaga, who got really kind of frustrated with sentient beings and threw up the slate and said, when it falls to the ground, I give up my bodhisattva vow. But Manjushri intervenes, and although he threw it in the sky, it never falls to the ground.
어다 던리다 말레스 어다 된다 안 저기도와. 대소이.
Losojis.
어다 대제 강쇼지 선바 출로 중앙이 막 타체되어라. 출로 리닐 다 반도야면 되스.
But we need to be clear, right, that this danger of bringing forth the awakening mind and falling off the bodhisattva path, this is only possible for those bodhisattvas on the small increment on the path of accumulation, right, which is the first of the 5 paths. Once they get to the middling increment of the path of accumulation, there is no longer the danger of losing that bodhisattva resolve.
어다 던지레스 되도와. 디스와.
Notice.
어다 달레 렌드게 내서 지지 정말 차송화 시게데 어느 손제마도 어다 바시시에 도야 말레스 다 디삼바 사주데.
So
다도
also, to understand completely cause and effect in every single instance, this is something that is only possible for a Buddha. There is no other sentient being who can penetrate karma to that level. Sorry, no other being who can penetrate karma. Sorry.
pena dembani.
Yep.
Dice chile me do no ta toque te
Geshe lost his pen. There you go. So it is only a Buddha who can in one moment for one object see the two truths, relative and ultimate, simultaneously, like of those flowers, for example. Right. So what happens for an ordinary practitioner, right, is we look at those flowers and they're at the coarse level of relative truth, and then we kind of meditate and contemplate. Then we're able to see the emptiness of those flowers. When the emptiness arises, right, then the relative aspect of the flower disappears from our mind because we can't hold those two things together as an ordinary being.
Ngwa nyolesone ta lashin go mo jagra was.
Lachin.
Go jabikala. Tanda tamabi nesati ne de yona, tamabi no ne yona.
Right.
Tumbani sieta de opore me vitare sigaris.
Ale. So then somebody who is practicing Vajrayana Tantra, who is practicing the generation stage, it is said that konda nangwa
Tamabi no koi nesi pege yare sonotoni.
tangna tompani yabo drumasos.
Tumbani sieta de opore me vitare.
Ale. It is said that when they're engaging in the deity yoga self-generation practice, if ordinary appearance is still coming into their mind, this is the sign that his or her preliminary meditation on emptiness was missing, was not full. So that's also an important thing to keep in mind with the Vajrayana practice.
Oh yeah, that you got it.
Los again.
Then shonju sembala doing no ni joa and that then shujana senje kunjo dela me.
Verse number 8, this is for a bodhisattva the heaviest of downfalls, for should it ever happen, the welfare of all will be weakened.
What I shonju sembala ni ba cheshu ji de tanda de ji da shonju sembala ina sei na tanda shonju sepa toya de no ba toya de. So the heaviest downfall is to set aside the bodhicitta resolve completely. This is the heaviest downfall in relation to the bodhisattva vows. Yeah. So when we speak about misdeeds, nilavna digiroa. Kanamatoa dang jendadi? Yes, we talk about misdeeds. We talk about misdeeds, and we can speak about natural misdeeds and prescribed misdeeds. Oh, I see. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to. Apparently, I'm not supposed to be surprised by this. I should know this already. So, so the word for misdeed in Tibetan is kana matoa. So it basically means not possible to utter from the mouth. Because this misdeed is something that is going to lead to a suffering result, because it is something that is negative and throws us off track, we aren't even going to be comfortable uttering it from our mouths, much less engaging in such a misdeed. Yeah. So, all of these kind of contemplations, the idea is to bring forth an unwavering conviction in karma, in cause and effect. The practitioner who has this unwavering conviction in cause and effect, even when they just hear about a person engaging in positive activities that bring benefit to others, their mind naturally feels happy. Even when they just hear about somebody evil-minded who is engaging in harming others, they feel a profound sadness. This is a sign of a practitioner with conviction in karma. So there was a great monk in China, and he was known as Lama Nyumba, the crazy Lama. But he was somebody who was widely regarded as a highly realized being with various miracle powers. He sang many beautiful songs, and the essence of one of these songs is, wherever sentient beings are enduring the most difficulties, may I always appear in that place to help them. And so one of the things that Lama Nyumba, the crazy Lama, said was, he was like wondering, is the hell realms, are the lower realms such a bad place? Because there's so many rich and famous people that end up there, so it can't be that bad.
Dajinla, right? And on the other hand, they talk about how great the Pure Land is, but we don't see so many people going there or so many rich and powerful. Why is that the case? So always, some hidden meanings in the songs that he sang. So Geshe is just saying, like, a lot of these songs that he's familiar with, he actually saw them as essential instructions that, really benefited him personally. Those again. Verse number 9, and should others for even a single moment hinder or obstruct his wholesome deeds, by weakening the welfare of all, there will be no end to their rebirth in lower states. Those again. So this is drawing our attention to a serious misdeed where if there is somebody who, with a positive mind is engaging in wholesome deeds, is engaging in activities to benefit others, and if for some selfish reason we try to disturb that, right? We try to obstruct them, then this is a very heavy misdeed. Right. And we have to be really careful, because if this being is a bodhisattva, they are engaging in that positive activity with the motivation of benefiting all sentient beings. So if we obstruct that positive activity, we are interrupting the welfare, the happiness of all sentient beings. Therefore, it's a very heavy misdeed. So there's a story of a man in Tibet who, he just had a very miserly mind. So when he saw people engaging in acts of generosity, it would upset them, and he would try to get them not to give away whatever that offering was. So wanting to encourage this man, and also wanting to encourage him to engage in generosity, and also to stop interrupting the generosity of others, a skilled Lama told him, first practice giving with your right hand a precious thing to your left hand, and in this way start training in generosity. And it was said that he followed this advice, and he was able to reduce his miserliness and eventually become a great practitioner. Verse number 10, Geshe is saying similar vein. For if my being is impaired by destroying the joy of even one creature, then what need is there to mention destroying the joy of creatures vast as space? So it's saying that, if we interrupt the causes of happiness of even one sentient being, that is something negative. But if we interrupt a bodhisattva, right, engaging in benefit for all sentient beings, then we are harming the cause of all of their joy, and this is something very heavy. Again. So Geshe said that actually this is one of the reasons why being the attendant of a great Lama is a very dangerous proposition, because if this great Lama is truly a bodhisattva, and the attendant for some reason or another is obstructing or diminishing his or her activities to benefit sentient beings, then this attendant accumulates heavy negative karma. Yeah, and so Geshe said, yeah, like we tend to think things about attendance of great lamas, but yeah, we try to be positive, but we understand that there are those who are smaller, middling, and great in terms of how they benefit the lama. Yeah. So as we read through these verses, right, it's kind of entertaining because there's all these different angles to look at different things. So, if you have some free time, Geshe encourages you, based on if you were able to bring forth a little bit of understanding from these classes, revisit these words and read them again. This will be something that's very beneficial. So, the great lamas of the past, they were very active in their engagement with the Dharma. So when they're looking at a text like this, what they'll be doing is they'll be picking out the shloka, the verses that are most beneficial for them. They'll be noting those and learning them, right, so that they can cultivate.
Oh yeah, that's jiba.
Yosaki. Verse number 11. Thus, for those who have the force of an awakening mind, as well as the force of falling from it, stay revolving within cyclic existence, and for a long time are hindered in reaching the Bodhisattva's levels. So one thing we can understand from this is like we can think, okay, like if I engage in negativities, I don't need to despair, right? Because I can engage in purification with the 4 opponent powers. But just thinking, okay, like I'll continue to do that and then I confess it, this becomes its own problem, right? If we're not careful, that can also become a problem. So, one of the example that's given, it's like if you break a bone in your arm or your leg, right? Often the doctor can, put a cast on it and the bone will fuse back together, but that bone is not going to be as strong as it was before it was broken. Right. Yeah. Right. So this is speaking about this type of person, right? They're not reaching the levels, not ascending the bodhisattva levels as you would expect, because what's happening is they're never breaking through those bad habits. So konsokaji ne digpa sa dene digpa jang digpa sa digpa jang. Because they're caught in this cycle of engaging in misdeeds and confessing, engaging in misdeeds and confessing. And because of that, they're not able to achieve those incontrovertible bodhisattva levels, and they're also cycling through different types of birth. Yeah. Di jiangshu senpa me parwa, mi den so. Konsu jiangshu senpa re jiangshu senpa. Ale, okay, los. So some of you may be remembering that up until now, Geshe has been encouraging you that, if you have committed a misdeed, don't be super neurotic about it, because you can confess this through the 4 opponent powers and by engaging in purification. So this is usually what Geshe emphasizes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Lam kyopo droya, topa kea. Right. So, but here's the caveat. So there's a caveat. So we engage in the misdeed, and through confessing with the 4 opponent powers, we can clear away that negative karma to the point where that karma is not going to lead to that intensely suffering result that it would have otherwise. However, even though we have cleared away that aspect of the karma, if we continuously engage in the misdeeds and confess, what it does is it does create a latency. This won't bring forth a suffering result, but it will hinder us achieving the paths, for example, the bodhisattva stages, as quickly as we would have otherwise. So that is the caveat. Yeah. So just to give like an illustration to clarify this, let's say that we had gotten to a point in our practice where maybe next year we were going to actually realize bodhicitta, like for realsies, or actually bring forth that wisdom realizing emptiness, like actually authentically, like that was a real possibility. But our conduct was such that we still had to be like making all of these karmic mistakes, misdeeds, and then confessing them. So, okay, we confess them so we don't have to meet the suffering result of that misdeed, but that bodhicitta that we might have achieved next year, or the emptiness that we might have realized next year, this becomes something years and years further down the road because of the latencies of those misdeeds. So not only is confession important, but we also have to try to train ourselves in ethics of not committing as many misdeeds, right? We do have to try and do that. So verse number 12, therefore, just as I have promised, shall I respectfully accord my actions. If from now on I make no effort, I shall descend from lower to lower states. Yeah, so pretty clear. So if we guard our commitments and try to live by them, we go from happy migration to happy migration. If we continually contravene those commitments, then we can end up in unfortunate state to unfortunate state. Verse number 30. The benefit of every creature, countless Buddhas have passed by, yet I was not an object of their care because of my own mistakes. Yeah. 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 So if you think of a seed for a very nice tree, like a fruit tree or something like this, if there is right. Even if the rain gods are raining the most nourishing rain, if you haven't planted that seed properly or protected it from degenerating, it will not be able to sprout. Yeah. So, we've had countless rebirths in the past, and we were born in many ages where there were Buddhas present. But because we did not guard our positive qualities, we were not able to come to benefit. All right, so sorry. Despite all of those Buddhas being there, because we were not guarding our potentiality, we were not able to subdue our mind. So this should bring forth an awareness that now having this human rebirth, having the information, the knowledge, the education, the intelligence to do what we need to do, we must very much strive our best. If you don't like the problems of samsara, of cyclic existence, there's a tool in your hand that you can use to deal with those. The key to all happinesses is in our very palm. We should think of this as a way of encouraging ourselves. So we will end here after verse number 13 in the conscientiousness chapter. Samshengi lo chinchi lo du truade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So we are on page number 6 of Gampopa, and we are on Yangyar Sundang.
생제절로 시절로 더 초알라 소대 티솔라 그마다
We are on the 6th shloka, so I'll read that out. Reflecting upon the utterly deluded mental states of sentient beings, inspire yourself to learn and reflect.
어다 단다이네 가저 알레 대진도 바즈 좀 멀리 걸어먹에도 마주도 내요 뭐 조대야 돼요. 생제절로 시절로 돈을라 노알은 돈을 다 딜레까지 바라봤어.
So we see, if we look upon, especially in the current day, all of the terrible wars that are being fought in this world, the terrible diseases and epidemics, the terrible suffering that's happened, we can see very clearly, right, where these mistaken minds lead sentient beings.
어다 대진 아주 미그 도통와를 던질라 때는 루루 소소야 뽑아도 세슈 야시에네라. 어다 네 티소 거스시 어다 예때 뭐지 토스는 마고바나 가리나 봐 편바여 버려도 그래.
So having seen that, then, we should think as a way to encourage ourselves, not to despair, but to encourage ourselves. Seeing all of these suffering beings, may I truly engage with hearing, contemplation, and meditation so that I can bring forth the positive mental qualities necessary to truly help them.
전제 선바선열에 지모체케지나요. 다 강가 뚱바니 마도 배운게 콜코들. 니 뚱바니 도몽 아로고 또 봐서. 아니 예를 파도 봐서 이 손어톤에 세 지모체케들이가.
So some bodhisattvas, right, they make this wish very specific. They think all sentient beings continue to revolve on this wheel of samsara due to their lack of knowledge of emptiness. May I realize emptiness myself so that I can lead sentient beings to that same realization so that they may be free.
나도 세야지 또야 될 롱가 니야레스. 쇼진네라.
그래서
쇼진네는 생제가 강해라. 거의 요다서노 돈에 소소그 세 야지로야지. 쇼셔도야지.
Yeah.
지대 손주도 손주에 삼바서 예대를 소노 돈에 쇼셔로야지.
So this combines two powerful ways of reflecting to transform our mind. The first powerful way is to think of the suffering that sentient beings are experiencing within samsara. That's the first transformative thought. The second one is to think nipadi karere semgiyente.
야 손주도 손주에 삼바서 토도 저토도 다 니빠도 드린 뭐뭐야 와서 니 제는 우소소소 세주처럼로야.
The other one is that if we are able to bring forth our positive mental qualities, we will be able to achieve the siddhis, the legs of magical emanation, the capacity to help sentient beings of that the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas possess.
엉이 당길라야 돼. 야나가 라마뇽바사 때모텔라 때네라 세주 셔도게 되세키 뭐뭐인가요?
Yeah, and also even the presence of these beings is something encouraging. So Geshe was saying these movies of Lama Nyumba, the crazy Lama, right? This Chinese Lama. Even just seeing those movies, this is something that's naturally encouraging to people.
야 되게 다 가지리. 덤바.
Dumba.
최이 바자 봉와 까와라 소데 고저라 그마다 알리아레.
So, reflecting upon the difficulty of leaving behind the habitual tendencies for delusion, inspire yourself to meditation, training, and sadhana practice.
어다 내지 할레벨라 잘리라 오래만 둘라제 첨보러 왔어. 어다 간조 보게 가리 이나요 셀시고 마용와도. 아체 뭐뭐지요. 대지 조 녀모고 잡 바자 되게 다 할레벨 내가 치고서다.
So we understand, right, that these habitual tendencies, they are what is causing us if we think about 야부코마선 건다 연결선다.
야 간조 가리 이나 셀시고 마용와지 용거 알아 왔어.
알레 로스로스.
이나 가리시고 셔라 마용.
Right.
가리 제나시고 마용와지 알아 왔어. 내세 때에서 하거나요.
Yeah.
다 대지 바자 되게 내가 치고시기요.
They right. So when we are training in meditation and hearing and contemplation, we might have this experience that as we cultivate that nothing is arising clearly in our mind. That sort of lack of clarity. This is because of the habitual tendencies we have towards what is unwholesome, what is afflicted.
제가 그마 야보 할레베 저 비다 버터니 야보 지어봐 이나요. 저는 엄마 두자질로 차와이나.
Num, oma.
다 레들이 보 쿨리더들이 와라.
Yeah.
저는 내서 두자진 엄마 류 차서나. 대파 정화서 차와 이나요.
Yeah.
어디는 토마티가 연달로 출러도 그 좋았어.
So it's a little bit like, think that you have a beautiful piece of fresh cloth and somebody spills like, milk that's gone off or another unpleasant, noxious thing in it. So you can clean that cloth and get rid of the stain, but it often happens that there's still a little bit of a smell of the rotten in it. It's a little bit like this with our habitual tendencies.
다 던지지 있다 녀무미 잡에 바쳐서 때 뚜마니서 짜침부 던지 뚜시라 되고 코메와서 두고 인지 민지 로바들 좀바도 니지 자와지 쇼니 세그리와스.
So this is why we say that the latencies or the imprints left behind by the afflictions are so powerful that even the direct realization of emptiness cannot clear away those latencies. The emptiness that is brought forth must be moistened by the power of bodhicitta. Only then can the latencies be cleared away completely. Yeah, so this is a very subtle point. Ale. But of course, so we want to get rid of those imprints, but the step, of course, is first to habituate ourselves to these positive mental qualities.
Oh, yeah.
Reflecting upon the rampant disturbing emotions of this dark age, inspire yourself to apply the antidotes. Something rebes, conso nyambo chiklagire dua. Oh no, someday nyampo. So I want, yeah. Someday, right. Young nyampo denso young sanuta. Right, yeah. So in this time of Kali Yuga, of the time of degeneration, when the afflictions are particularly powerful, we must focus, we must concentrate on their antidotes. So in terms of getting rid of these objects of abandonment, right, the things that we want to diminish, practically we want don't have time to finish. Practically we want to get rid of the bigger objects of abandonment first. But when we cultivate the antidote, we want to cultivate the smaller antidote first. Yeah. Right. That's so embarrassing. So how does this work? So Geshe says that, like, imagine that you spill something. Like Geshe was saying, like, if I ever go out to a restaurant, I always manage to, like, spill something on myself. So you spill something on your clothes. It's like I have to translate my own faults. How fun. Yep. Yeah. So when you spill something on your clothing, right, you then have something dirty like a stain or grease or something on your clothing, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Jima kala. So just imagine that particular food or drink, it is something that has like a very strong smell in this case. Ale. Yeah. And then imagine that this stain is like our previously accumulated negativities. Yeah. So, yeah, 하고성, Tana. I understand. Okay, I got it. So imagine then that you have this stain, right? You might not necessarily have to take the cloth to the dry cleaners, right? If you just put some soap on it and wash it in the sink, you might be able to get rid of most of it. So in this way, right, the realization of bodhicitta, the direct realization of emptiness is not necessary to start to get rid of this stain, right? We can start with the antidotes we can cultivate. So that's what we, yeah. So that's what we mean where we address the big affliction first, right? The stain that is immediately evident. We might not be able to cultivate the full antidote like bodhicitta or emptiness, but we can start, right, with the small antidotes to begin to work on the stain. Yeah. And so this is kind of an easy example, an example that the holy beings give about how to see these negativities. Okay. Yep. But let's say that it's not a big piece of food or something that fell onto your lap and left behind this stain. Let's think that it's a few drops of oil that got into your clothes. So this is a much more kind of subtle problem. So to get rid of that oil that's worked to get rid of that, it's like Geshe was giving pieces and he's expecting me to fill in the blanks, but I'm like, it's better you tell me because I might get it wrong. So anyways, but to get rid of that oil, right, you need the most profound antidotes of emptiness and bodhicitta, and that is like these latencies left behind, the imprints left behind by the afflictions. Yeah. So you see, it's not incongruous when we say small antidote for the big stain, big antidote for the small stain. So now it should make sense through that illustration. So in a strong moment of anger, right, if one is skilled in meditating on love, even just bringing forth a little bit of love into the mind can greatly diminish that anger. So, maybe more to discuss on this later. Okay. So thank you. We shall end it here. As always, folks, if after the dedication you need to go on with your daily activities, please do. But if you'd like to stay for our discussion, you are most welcome. Jangjo semjo rinpoche maje panam jejo rechi chewan yamba mebayang gone gondu bewar sho tongni tawa rinpoche maje panam jejo rechi chewan yamba mebayang Gone gondu bewa sho jambe bao jidar kyamba dan kundu sambo deyan de shin de da kungi jesu dalo che gewa di da tamshe radu ngo dusu shebe gewa tamshe gi ngowa ganla jodu ngaba de Dagi gewe tsawa dikun kyang zambo cheji rabdu ngowa gi gangri rawe kowe shingam de pendan dewa malu jongwe ne chenre ziwan tenzin jatso yi shabe si de bardu tengyo So we'll pause there. And we welcome any questions, so don't be shy. Yeah, so we have a visitor today. Yeah, go ahead, Jonathan.
I'm just curious if Geshe has any recommendation on how to deal with selfishness as it arises, like instantly.
So did people hear the question? No, okay, so he's asking about how to deal with selfishness as soon as it arises, like in that same instant. Nganso rang chenzing gi semdi hop the kala lebdi nganso hop the kala gi nyambo kandes chikso to gires. Hop the kala nyungru kandes tang to giresa.
다때 저도 깨자 먹어요 알아서 어떻게 매봐줘야 돼. 다 대신에는 때 예진스야 예라 되는 거래. 예진스 그래. 좀 맞추면 좋겠다나.
So Geshe said that the secret here actually, there's different antidotes we can cultivate just right in the moment. But the secret is that if we have trained in the mind that cherishes others, familiarize yourself with the mind that cherishes others. Then, as soon as that selfishness, that self-cherishing arises, you'll be able to bring that forth as an antidote.
노서 되는 것이 좋더나. 근데 그 같이 따다 이상 노서 거.
That's really the most effective one, because if you've in your practice developed that mind that cherishes others, it's the direct antidote to self-cherishing or self-centeredness. So as soon as you bring it up, it will diminish that right away. Yeah, and you know, you can look at the text, for example, on how to cultivate that mind that cherishes others as a way to familiarize. An easy reason why it's important to cherish others is because all of the positive qualities, positive mental qualities that we want to develop, love, compassion, bodhicitta, these are only possible by cultivating through thinking about others. Therefore, others make our positive qualities possible. This is why we must cherish them. Lines of reasoning like that. And so in your daily life, as you start to develop this more and more, every person, every animal that you meet, you're going to think, oh, this is the source of my being able to cultivate these positive qualities. This being is the source of my ultimate happiness. And then you'll develop more and more appreciation for others, which will reduce the selfishness. So Geshe Tokme Sampo, so the Bodhisattva Tokme Sampo, some of you may know him. He's the great Lama who wrote the 37 practices of Bodhisattvas. So it is said that one day he was traveling with a large party of other teachers and all of his students, and there was a cow that had just died in the road. He immediately, got down and started saying prayers for the cow, and he did the prayers so extensively that everyone got sick of waiting for him, and they kind of were already at the destination and had finished their dinner by the time he got back. So what happens is, if you have this conviction, right, that every single being is the basis for my developing my positive mental qualities, then every single being that you encounter, this is going to come to mind, and that will be kind of generally present to reduce the selfishness. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks. So anybody else? Does anyone else at home have a question? Brigitte, yes, go ahead, Brigitte. I see your hand there, but I can't hear you.
You said that...
Now I can hear you, yeah.
You said that there are two kinds of misdeeds. Can I have an example of each?
The two kinds, the natural misdeed and the prescribed misdeed. You want an example?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Kanamatoa, rangjin kanamatoa dam kandes? Chepe kanamatoa chik pejaroches.
로지가 가는 마토 와서는 콜 빼나 로지 코로 세 코로 레거드니 디바이나 무게와이나
right.
로지 가는 마토 와서.
So the natural misdeeds are these actions that, if they are engaged in with an afflicted mind, they are naturally negative. Pe socheba.
빼나 다 소제바 이너레 다 하고 살아와. 어센젤 네바시아 드리와라와스.
So for example, killing a being, causing pain to a living being. These are activities which by their nature are negative, and when engaged in with an afflicted mind, of course, they are naturally lead to negativities. So these are known as natural misdeeds. So in terms of these prescribed misdeeds, these only arise in the context of vows that people have taken. So the action might not necessarily be seen as completely negative, but because it contravenes a vow or a commitment that you've promised to abide by, then it has a negativity. This is called prescribed misdeed. Perna genyen drupa dene kalasana. Tilagene. Don't tell me. He said like if you take the Mahāyāna Sojang vows and like if I did what I do if I eat like behind a blanket, then that is like a bad thing. He's kidding. He does work. I think sometimes people wonder like, is this stuff true? Like sometimes it is, but like just assume that 60 to 70% of the time it's a joke, folks. He's kidding. Yeah. He said otherwise if you believe it and it's not true, he gets a misdeed. So yeah, he's joking. Yeah. Yeah. Sa. Grass. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So an example of a prescribed misdeed would be if a monk or a nun had a blade of grass and they hit the cow with that blade of grass. Now, of course, it's a blade of grass. It's not going to hurt the cow in any way. So if you didn't have vows and you did that, it wouldn't be something to worry about. But because of the vows that monks and nuns take, there's still a misdeed there. So this is the example of a prescribed misdeed. So just think, prescribed misdeeds are those misdeeds that are related to contraventions of specific vows or commitments, not things that are necessarily in and of themselves negative. Yeah. So anyways, there's a lot of further discussion that one could have about this. But the idea here is that it's a misdeed. It's not an inherently negative karma, but it's a misdeed only because it's a contravention of a specific promise that you made in the context of your vows. We can't say it's a sin. A prescribed misdeed is not a sin, right? A prescribed misdeed is just that, a misdeed, a contravention, if you will. Yeah. So we'll leave that there, but hopefully that clarified Brigitte's question.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Brigitte. You're welcome. Dave, I see your hand up. I can't hear you though.
There we go.
Oh, there you are. Yep,
Hi.
now I can hear you.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions from social media. Actually, first one is in the Zoom chat, and there's one from Facebook. So Laden is asking, is the biggest stain referred to this life or all previous lives?
Oh, like this example, I guess, from the
Misconduct.
dropping the food on yourself that he's asking about, right?
Yeah.
Nganso perna kala masa pe kapala drima chesha di nganso di sena kewa digi drima chesha re kewa nguma gi drima chesha re sa. Yeah, I'm not clear on the question either. Geshe is asking what's... So Geshe said that when we speak about a stain, it's just the afflicted action, and then the subtle aspect is the imprint left behind by that. So yeah, so he'll give an example. Yeah. 하고서. Chempodi. No, loso. Yeah, ola, di ola. Tetsamodi. Right. So Geshe would say that somebody who doesn't usually get angry, right? But if there's one thing that really triggers them, one thing that can unfailingly make angry, and they get really angry, that immediate reaction to that incident is like the food. It's like the greater stain that's fallen on the cloth. But the thing that's operating under that, which is that imprint that is causing them to get angry in that very particular situation, this is like the more subtle stain, which is like the oil. So that's how he sees it. So I'm just going to say, feel free to come back. I can't remember the person who asked the question, but it doesn't sound like Geshe is differentiating this in past and future lifetimes, actually. He's differentiating it in this way. But if you want to ask back, please do.
Yeah, and then the question. Go ahead.
May I ask, clarify this? Like when we have a misconduct that, like, we try to get better and better, and then sometimes there's, as you said, the situation that comes back like as an anger or misunderstanding, but like, for example, in our day-to-day life, it comes from our past memories, like with our family or with our the society in which we used to live and had a certain like imprint in our mind. I wanted to clarify, is it like coming from our previous lives? Because it had still a result as an anger or misunderstanding. That's why
So let me just clarify. I think I understood you, but I just want to clarify to make sure that I translate the question correctly. So you're asking about like kind of these traumas, right? Like things that may have happened to us in the past, whether because of our upbringing, like how we grew up with our parents, or maybe because of growing up in a difficult society and so forth. And so we hold those experiences, right, in our mind as memories. And when something triggers that memory, then we can react in anger. So what I hear you're asking is, can those, let's call them traumas, for lack of a better word, can those carry over from previous lifetimes as well as from this lifetime? Is this what you're asking, or did I misunderstand your question?
No, exactly. It's what I'm asking, and as you said, like Geshe said, it's like one stain, but the stain doesn't come from our actual misconduct, but it's become from far away in our previous lives.
Right. So previous lifetimes, or maybe a long time ago in this lifetime. I think I understand you. Yeah. Okay, I got you. Nganso perna hopte kala mi lunglang yade ko namgin mi lunglang po dapo remandus dapo chiksung suage. Dene di ine netso chung chik hopte kala samsam lunglang giredua. Dene nganso netso halepe kensa chik hopte kala Karichene lunglangires mi mangchewa konso gymsen sheda tongyo mare. Di chichena nganso lo chung kapula nganso nangmi nangla ginetsu duksha chik nganso lo ginanglo netsu duksha chik ane netsu di jempa sene dene nganso lamsang lunglangire dua roa dene jempa denso konso yang kewa ngoma le yong tugire bes dene nganso lunglangi gymsen chi.
다 된다면 알아봤어. 템바 그 사태 챈데 집어가 소소녀 달라테니 템바텔에 요나. 시왕가 맞게 제 요마 알아봤어. 로스. 제 거로 챈데 집어를 지바래. 이거 템바티 용거 알아봤어.
So Geshe said that, you know, what the first, like, we can look at it from this lifetime in particular. Yes, you have a negative memory or feeling about something that happened to you in the past. Somebody's behavior reminds you of that. So you get overreactive to something, which wouldn't make sense to other people, but it makes sense because of that memory. Yeah, so that memory's activated, and then you get very angry, for example. So Geshe thinks that mostly this is happening with regards to this life memories, but the karma of trauma, it's possible to experience traumas over many lifetimes because the karma that led to them isn't fully resolved. So we may have experienced a trauma in this life because of karma carried over from trauma due to a previous lifetime. It is rare, Geshe said, but it could happen that, yes, okay, maybe you had like a great upbringing, or there's no discernible trauma in this lifetime, but you're getting really strangely reactive in a very particular situation. It's not impossible, right, that that's a trauma from a previous lifetime embedded deeply within the consciousness that one is reacting to. That's also possible. Did this answer you, Brigitte? Or who was it? I'm sorry, it wasn't Brigitte, it was someone else. Did this answer
it's
you?
Ladan. It's Ladan.
Ladan, yeah.
Thank
Did
you.
it answer you?
Yeah, thank you. It
Okay,
was
great.
very, very helpful.
Okay, no, I'm glad. I'm glad.
So
Thanks, Ladan.
for open power, like for
Can the four opponent power clear away these traumas
Yeah.
or these imprints?
yeah.
Nganso ngama nyamyong duksha denso trempa yong ya kandesla gare dipa jaya netso topji denso la tene mepa so tugire besa.
야 때도 때인데 더 그러왔어. 아니 때는 오래 때는 당가마가 야티가 다 제와 도면서 앞에 디바 몸보지 메와 코로고 지소스. 저서 뇨사로 왔어. 다 때는 은주 다 년보 도진 거래 대파 바쳐대지 바 메와서 야 기세요 왔어.
Yeah, so Geshe thinks that, you know, yeah, he's very cautious. Yeah, Tisco ngaluk tambodilago. Let me do the first part before I get the second. So he said he's very cautious about saying this, but generally what we could think is that traumatic experience, if we can understand that as a karma that we have experienced and moved through, and by experiencing it then, we will not have to experience it again, this can help us to release it. This can help us to release it.
빼는 가로서 그 당가마가 야기에서 가리기는 빼는 거의 대화이나 이대래. 융화이나요. 물론 우지래 코 자자서 왔어.
But we can also just try to cultivate an awareness of being at peace with the fact that these things are impermanent. They are ephemeral, right? The really negative experience that we had, that's over. It's impermanent. We're no longer experiencing it. And also the positive experiences we had, right? Those are over. We're no longer experiencing it. So contemplating their impermanence can be very helpful.
저 지대 왔다 대지 요요 전에 셀 강에 야금이 스탠드 할래 뭐 디가 디파 뭐 스탠드 다사래 좀 마치는 그 유바지래.
So we can create a vaster mind, a more spacious mind about this if we train deeply in impermanence. That can help us to let go of those past experiences. So in the case of a negative experience, right, that triggers us, that traumatizes us, we can think, no, that experience is finished now. It is impermanent. It doesn't need to last into this moment. Similarly, through experiencing that, I purified heavy negative karma. And in this way, because I have purified it, may I allow myself to release it.
난저 거의 대화를 노지세 그러와서 거의 대화 가제 뇨여나요. 단단 말로 노지르만 배도는 지주시면 됐어.
The samsaric happiness is the same thing, right? We talk about the peaks of happiness and bliss that we've experienced in samsara, but now they're like dreams. Those past moments of like unbelievable joy might not necessarily be benefiting us right now.
대 노지래 되니 이나요. 다 소속을 내가 다야를 코 단계 되지 손으로 또나 소속 좋은 거야.
So that can be helpful, just contemplating that impermanence. But Geshe said also, because you mentioned the four opponent powers, just thinking that we've experienced that as a result and that karma has been purified, this can also be very helpful. And if you combine this with the four opponent powers, then this is a very holistic approach to dealing with these things.
Thank you so much.
I think there's another question. Dave,
Yes.
I think there was one more, wasn't there? Yeah, go ahead.
There's a question here from Facebook from Joy, who asks, yes, thank you for the prayer. So I checked, and she's referring to the prayers we recited this morning at the beginning and at the end.
Right.
Thank you for the prayer. It feels like the body vibrate and pulse, and the body loves this and feels like the conscious mind is resetting. Would you explain a little how this works?
So the body's pulsing and the conscious mind is resetting.
Yes.
That's the experience, right?
Yeah, vibrate and pulse, and could you explain how this works?
Oh, this is testing the limits of my Tibetan, vibrate and pulse, but I'll do my best. And the consciousness is resetting, right? That was the second part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guys are getting the sauce already. So, ko nganso kadin chipe kapla roa nganso di nundro gi kandin dang tama ngoe gi kandin din. So, dene ko kandeslau gare supo nangla di lo ship gi tsorwa mutune di kandeslau gare ning nangshin du droa gi tsorwa chik yongi tua. Di kare chene yongi res. Ane yang nganso sempa di kandeslau gare computer nangshin reset yangya go tsu gire dua. Di kare chene yongi resa.
매매매 다 대도 소속 번아서 노도도 돼 보잖아. 어느 뒤에 다 보겠어요. 좋아요. 보시게 다 지르왔어.
Yeah. So Geshe said that, you know, these are just simply, if we really engage our mind with the prayers, we can have these pleasant sensations that arise in the body. Certainly this will happen.
다들 이렇게 좀 뭐 된다 되래. 소속 노도야 보게 다다 야보지 노요나. 다 뒤에 어떻게 걸어 보일래.
So from engaging the mind, right, there is kind of like a positive potential or energy that is brought forth, and sometimes this has like a physical sensation along with it. This can definitely happen. Yeah. So that's a good thing, actually. It's a good thing, yeah.
So
Geshe is asking, he says he still sees Dave's yellow hand, so he was wondering if there's something else.
That's all. I mean, I don't know. I've got a question of my own, but maybe I'll ask another time.
Yes, okay. And also, folks, you know, for just if you have a question that you can't formulate right away, because sometimes like we have it, but we just need to like ruminate a bit more or whatever, please do know that my email is there, and you know, I can check with Geshe. Geshe wants to tell a story though. So we're going to tell a story before we go. He said, don't act like it's too heavy. So don't overreact to the story, folks. He's wondering if he wants to tell you a light-hearted tale or a heavier tale. Geshe is thinking. So whether we speak about a wholesome karma or an unwholesome karma, there are easy ways to accumulate them. And in this way, those wholesome or unwholesome karmas can become very powerful. So he's doing the heavy story, everybody. Yeah. So because he thinks the story's more interesting, so that's why he wants to do this one. Yes. So this is from the time of Shakyamuni Buddha, and he was visiting a particular land, and in this particular land there was a mother, and she had 11 children. Chuchikro? Yeah. Chematoba, Drogo Nangladea. And so her experience with childbirth was very curious. 10 of those children were able to come into the world very easily. But there was one child that never wanted to leave her womb. She wasn't able to bring it into birth. Geshe said easily was maybe a mistranslation. He says it's not like taking a bottle out of the fridge. Giving birth is a little bit more difficult. So let us say relatively smoothly compared to more difficult. There's some things men just don't understand. That is very true, isn't it? Yeah. So the baby was in the womb for so long, actually, that it was coming close to the mom's time to pass away from that life, and the baby was still in her womb. Yeah, and so she said to the people that were kind of gathering around her, you know, I'm still carrying a child, so as soon as I lose consciousness, right, as soon as the death has started, you know, please open me open up my womb and take the child out to save it. And this, because it was so unusual, it became very well known in the land. Everyone was really surprised. And people being really nosy, a lot of people wanted to come and see that if it was true, if a baby could stay in the womb for this long, that by the time she was an old woman, it was still there. So she passed away, and they were able to do like the cesarean or whatever and take out the baby. And so the baby was very small, but its face had wrinkles and was shriveled up like a prune, like of somebody who was much older. So people were wondering, like, this is really an unusual thing, right? Like, you have this small baby, but yet it looks like a wizened, older person. Like, how is this possible? And just at the time when they were wondering this, the Buddha, with some of his hearer disciples, they approached that place. So the Shravaka hearer disciples, they asked the Buddha, Blessed One, how is it that this occurred? So the Buddha said, many lifetimes ago, there was a teacher with a group of students. And this teacher was an advanced meditator. It is said that he engaged in meditative retreat for like 60 years. And one day, as he was meditating, a group of magicians came close to where he was sitting in meditation, and they started to conjure up all sorts of illusions. So his students came and disturbed his meditation and said, there's going to be these magicians that are here, so come outside and look at the magic show. But he didn't want to leave his meditation. So one of the students said, you've been in that dark and musty cave for 60 years. I hope you stay in that dark and musty cave for 60 more years. He said that. Yes, Hagosung. So this was the baby that stayed in his mother's womb for 60 years. Yeah. So this is also an example, Geshe said, of he was reborn as a human being, right? The disciple of a very fine teacher. But he didn't resolve that karma, that habit of insulting his teacher, so he had to stay in the womb, right, in darkness for 60 years, right, which is a very long time. A baby usually doesn't want to stay 60 years. Yeah, and so Geshe Tenpa, when they heard this story from one of their teachers, Geshe Tenpa, who's Geshe-la's best friend, he said, are we supposed to feel sorry for the baby in the womb? I feel sorry for the mother. I feel a lot more sorry for the mother than for the baby. Yeah. So, but it's incredible, right? That karma can be so powerful that one would stay in the womb for 60 years, right? This seems like something that's impossible. Yeah. So this is what we call, you can have the karma to have a throwing karma to have a positive rebirth, but the remnant karma, right, of him saying that resulted in that difficult situation. Yeah. So Geshe said he promised an interesting story. He's not sure if it was a fun story, but it is interesting. So hopefully it was an interesting story. Yeah. So thank you so much, folks. It's always a joy to greet you here, and I hope to see some of you next Sunday. Take care, everybody. Yeah. Have a
Thank
good
you
one.
so much.
Thanks, everybody. It was fun.
Thank you.
Take care.
Gracias.
Take care.
Thank you.